Hey everyone, really excited to be talking this morning with Republican Congressman Keith South of Texas' 3rd Congressional District. Congressman, thanks for coming on this morning.
Great to be with you. Thank you.
There's a lot I want to get to, but as I was doing my research and preparing my questions, I wanted to pull in your background in the military. You've said that Washington needs Texas toughness in it. So I'm curious how your Army career and your time as a county judge prepared you for your role in Congress.
Well, in the military, you learn responsibility at a very young age. And of course, I was an airborne ranger before I graduated from West Point, having graduated from both Ranger School and Airborne School. Soon after, I went to the Green Beret training course, Special Forces qualification course. Spent about 10 years in the airborne forces, both with the 82nd and the Special Forces, and then got into the Joint Staff area, the Pentagon, NATO military headquarters, European Command, the embassy in Cairo, Egypt. So you learn responsibility and you learn how to do staff work and you learn how to think through things. You learn how to do critical thinking. And then as the county judge in a county that grew to 1 million people in Texas, you have to learn to count to three because the commissioner's court has 5 people on it. So it's an influence position. There's very little personal power as a county judge, but you have to have influence or you really can't do the job.
How did you come to run for elected office? Is it something that you had anticipated, or did you sort of stumble into it?
Well, while I was in the embassy in Cairo was my first experience because I worked for a man who'd been in the Army for more than 30 years, very experienced, and the congressional members that would come over to the embassy, their staffers, 20-year-old staffers, would treat this general officer like he didn't know anything, and they knew every solution to every problem in the world. It was my first experience. And then when I was in the Pentagon, I worked over at the old executive office building quite a bit as a joint staff member of a National Security Council planning group. And so I got to know members of Congress over there, and I realized this is not rocket science. You basically have to believe something, left, right, believe something, and be able to articulate it. And frankly, along with the residence requirement, that's basically the requirement for the job.
And so when you say you have to believe something, I'm curious if you can tell me a little bit about what helped form the foundation of your beliefs.
Well, my beliefs were formed very early in my family life because I was raised in a Christian home and I was taught the basic Christian values from an early age. I became a follower of Jesus, a Christian at the age of 15 in the Bell Avenue Baptist Church in Amarillo, Texas. And then when I went to West Point, I was actually discipled by two active duty professors, John George and Al Shine at West Point. So that's where my faith deepened into where I was able to exercise it during my military career.
Let's talk about policy now a little bit. You've been described as a fiscal hawk, and I think you would probably agree with that label. So, regarding the rescissions, President Trump just signed about 9 billion in rescissions. It is anticipated that he's going to send another rescissions package to Congress when it comes to education. What are your thoughts on this?
The rescissions package are a major accomplishment. We must get these done because this is where we're finding the fraud, waste, and abuse. And it's Congress's job to approve the rescissions package, one or more that the president sends over. This is what he ran on. This is what everyone, you go look at the websites of most members of Congress in the Republican conference, and you will see something about government spending. Well, this is where we put rubber to the road and we make it happen. Russ Vought and the OMB and the president are identifying the places where we need to cut government spending. Now, look, $9 billion is a drop in the bucket or even less. But we need to do everything we can to meet the Trump promises to make sure that they come true.
And we are heading into appropriation season. Do you worry that this could muddy the waters when it comes to getting a budget deal with with Democrats in the Senate since they need 60 votes there?
Yeah, absolutely. We've got such a complex, moving, fluid situation right now when it comes to government funding. We just had the One Big Beautiful Bill, which basically is a budget bill that then informs the baseline for FY26 appropriations bills. As you say, we've got the rescissions packages coming along. The House has passed two appropriations bills out of 12 right now. The Senate hasn't passed a single one. August is upon us. The end of September is coming fast. We will obviously then have to have a CR of some length at the end of September because there's no way both the House and the Senate are going to get 12 appropriations bills done, then conference them, and then get them to the president's desk. So, yes, this is a very, very complex situation we're dealing with.
I would also love to see 12 separate bills pass through the House, go through the Senate. Do you worry, though, because what typically winds up happening is the Senate winds up jamming the House with one of these big omnibus bills rather than voting on them individually? How hard are you prepared to push back on that happening?
Well, I think that we're in a pretty good situation today to push back hard on that. Because we've got several things that the American people understand today. The one big beautiful bill, one of the good things it did was it just let the people know how far we are in debt, $37 trillion now, how hard it is to get cuts, both the spending cuts in the one big beautiful bill and the rescissions package. So people are waking up right now to the fact that Washington loves to spend their taxpayer dollars, and it's very hard to cut back on anything. But that gives us impetus toward being able to survive a shutdown because the common narrative is the Republicans always get blamed for the shutdown. But everybody's starting to understand just the danger we're in from the debt and the yearly deficit, the annual deficit. So I'm looking forward to this. I believe, and I've heard from some of the Republican members of the House, people you wouldn't expect to talk about the debt and the deficit. They're starting to talk about it. So we've got to take it seriously.
I want to ask you about a specific piece of legislation I know you've introduced, and that's the 123 Go Act. So the aim of this is to expand U.S. nuclear cooperation abroad. What motivated you to introduce this, and what's the impact you think it'll have on global competitiveness?
This bill, global competitiveness in the nuclear area is one, we need to make sure there is no more proliferation of nuclear weapons around the world. We want to keep the nuclear club as small as possible because it has always been the case that our worst case is a madman with a nuke. Now, when it comes to nuclear cooperation, I think and civilian uses of nuclear energy, I think people are realizing that a stable, safe, baseload energy is produced by nuclear power plants. They are building around the world some of the big nuclear plants, but we also have the small modular reactors that are starting to come online. I think there are 5 different companies in the United States that are trying to get their SMRs certified. So when you look at nuclear, on one hand, nuclear weapons, we need non-proliferation. On nuclear power, we need to cooperate more so that the United States continues to lead. Having said that, Russia controls a lot of the highly enriched uranium that you use in nuclear reactors. So once again, this is a complex situation. We need to cooperate so that China and Russia do not control the nuclear environment as a whole going forward.
You're also on the House Foreign Affairs Committee, and I know you lead the subcommittee on Europe. What's some of the work that your subcommittee has been focused on recently in that area?
Well, the most important thing across the Foreign Affairs Committee has been the reauthorization of the State Department. We've been working very closely with Secretary Rubio, on how we want to design the Department of State to one, cut down the number of people, and two, reorient it toward the interest of the United States. So that's the most important thing we've been doing. Excuse me. In the subcommittee, we've been working on issues like Turkey, because Turkey is distracted with Syria from its NATO mission. We need to make sure that Turkey remains a stable NATO ally. We're going to work on the Balkans, which I think is a potential flashpoint. We're going to work on NATO. Because NATO is coming along. As you know, they just agreed to 5% total, 3.5% in their military weaponry, 1.5% in their infrastructure to support NATO. All of the NATO nations did that. So we're going to work to make sure that the NATO nations actually can follow through with that because, as you know, Europe GDP grows at a lower rate than the US GDP. If you're going to fund more military, you're going to have a GDP that will support it. And we are both going to have to work on a defense industrial base to make sure that when somebody wants to buy weapons from us or our forces need a weapon system, we can actually produce enough of that system.
I was also reading a story just this morning that you introduced legislation to codify some of the Doge cuts that have been done by Elon Musk's team. How confident are you that you're going to be able to move the ball forward on that?
Well, these bills actually codify presidential EOs because this is one of the most important things that I think Congress needs to get at because President Trump will not be president forever. And those EOs, the executive orders, can be overturned with a stroke of a pen, as we know. So we need to codify as many of the common sense executive orders that President Trump has signed during this term, because who knows what the next term is going to bring.
I also know, as I mentioned, you're there in Texas, so border security has been one of the central themes of your platform. You supported the Secure the Border Act and introduced the El Chapo Act as well. So, can you tell us what federal action that you'd like to see in order to help stem the tide of illegal immigration and secure the border?
Well, frankly, the tide of immigration coming across the border has been stopped. We have very low numbers of entry into the United States, people that are released. In fact, the flow has reversed. 135,000 have been deported, a million have self-deported. So we've made a good start in just 6 months of the Trump administration on immigration. And I think that it probably will not be an issue in elections going forward. It was a huge election in the last election, a huge issue in the last election. But I will tell you going forward, I think people are pretty satisfied with the way immigration is going. Now, you saw in the big, beautiful bill that Tom Homan got some money for beds, for detention, for the things that he needs to support the flow being repatriated out of the United States. So I think it's in a good place today.
What do you make of some of these Democrat mayors in, for example, I'm thinking Los Angeles, who are actively trying to prevent the federal government, to prevent ICE from going into the city and conducting their operations?
Well, they are reaping what they sow, and I believe that Tom Homan is very clear that he is going to use federal law and federal law enforcement to do what he has promised to do, what President Trump has promised people he will do, and that is to deport, to repatriate the illegal immigrants in these places. And frankly, when you look at people say the economy is going to crash, the economy is not going to crash. In just 6 months of the Trump administration, 2 million jobs have gone to native-born Americans, huge number. And now we know that there are 7 million able-bodied adults not in the economy. That's a total of 9 million adults that could go into the economy to replace the illegal immigrants that we are repatriating out. So we need to rebalance our workforce with these native-born workers as we deport, as we repatriate the illegals.
Besides getting our fiscal house in order, what's one other big legislative priority for you this term?
Well, as the chairman of the Europe Subcommittee on Foreign Affairs, it is the credibility of the United States around the world. Under the Biden administration, you may have heard President Trump say that the King of Saudi Arabia told him a year ago, your nation was dead. Today, it's alive, it's vibrant, it's working. That is simply one story about America. We need to reestablish the credibility of the United States around the world. President Trump is doing that through all of the tariff deals. He made 3 in one day just a couple of days ago, one with Japan. So that's what we need to do, both economically, diplomatically, and militarily, reestablish American credibility around the world.
Can you describe Texas 3rd District for me, for my listeners who might not be familiar? Can you give us a feel for it?
I certainly can. I have parts of 2 counties, Collin County and Hunt County. Most of my population is down in the southwest corner of Collin County, but I have a very diverse, all the way from first ring suburbs out to rural, very rural population. It is a very fast growth area. It is a very, it's a bubble in terms of jobs. We're building jobs quickly. We're building infrastructure quickly. It is truly a great place to serve the people of Third District.
And if one of my listeners comes down there to the district, is there a place that you recommend they have to stop and see while they're there?
Oh my goodness! In the third district, we've got so many great places to shop, to dine. I would just encourage them to come and enjoy the vibrant economy of the third district. If you want to see cattle, we've got a great herd of longhorns right there on the outskirts of Frisco on what I think is still a section of land. Now, I know the cattle people call longhorns yard art, but I love Texas longhorns, and there is a great herd to look at right there at Preston Road and Main Street in Frisco.
All right, Congressman. Well, thank you very much for coming on this morning and talking to us, and I hope to speak to you again in the future, sir.
Thank you so much.